Very much. My first guest sits on the Foreign Affairs Committee, Republican Congressman Brian Mast of Florida. The congressman, we also want to note, served in the United States Army for more than a dozen years and is an Afghanistan war veteran. Great to get all of your expertise and your time today. Let's start off with how this moves the ball in terms of our relationship with North Korea.
Well, I think it moves it substantially. You have a sitting U.S. president willing to speak there. And you mentioned that there's no guarantee of what comes out of this, that's for sure. But we have a guarantee going into this, and that's that we have the strongest U.S. president in decades going in there. A president that dropped the Moab, the mother of all bombs. A president that was willing to strike at the heart of Syria, where they were willing to launch chemical attacks from. This is the president that's going into that meeting, and that's a major difference.
You know what's interesting? This Congressman, we have heard, and of course you'd only be able to be in the president's head to know if this was going on, that he basically didn't really tell anybody much about what he was about to do. And sitting on the committee that you do, what is the conversation now about a president who makes such a bold move?
The conversation is, let's make sure that we maintain this course of not giving any concessions. He's been an incredibly strong president. Don't go in there and make the same mistakes. Don't fall for anything that leads to, a simple pause or them allowing to kind of kick the can down the road. Don't give in to anything that's some sort of concession to them. Be strong. Be the president that you've been with domestic policy and foreign policy, and we're going to come out of this in the right way.
You mentioned the military element of this, and I've had diplomats tell me that without that, your words don't really have a whole lot of meaning. And you enumerated some of the things that have gone on. What kind of military pressure, just in a mission, devising your mission type of language now, do you think we need to continue or even freshly apply?
Well, let's look at one of the greatest military pressures that's on them right now. They have General Mattis sitting there as the Secretary of Defense. They have a Congress, a Senate, a president that's willing to plus up the military in the biggest way possible, again, in decades. People, other nations, they're aware that we are prepared. We are preparing our military for what could be. And I think that sends shockwaves and messages through their regimes.
So, what's interesting? We carried a tweet earlier this week, I believe it was Tuesday, from the president. Can we show everybody? Because you know that this was bravado. But my question was this also a foreshadowing, possible progress being made in talks with North Korea? This is the president. For the first time in many years, a serious effort is being made by all parties concerned. The world is watching and waiting. Maybe false hope, but the U.S. is ready to go hard in either direction. Congressman Mast, strong words from Tuesday.
Well, we know that this president does not back up his words. He's a president that does what he says. That's been one of his strongest moves in terms of his domestic policy. He does what he says, even in the face of people pushing back. He does what he says in terms of foreign policy. This is the president going in there. That makes all the difference in the world when he's sitting down at that table. What he says he will do, and Kim Jong-un can believe that. As
a United States warrior, you're often tasked to get in the head of the enemy. Did that tweet get in the head of the enemy?
I hope it did. I think absolutely it did, but I think the president wouldn't have done it without that goal to begin with.
All right, so as we go forward, based on what we know with North Korea, and we can look at history. Sometimes they'll make promises, Kim Jong-un and just the Kim dynasty in general, and then all of a sudden they'll fire off missiles. Your thoughts about where we are up against what they can put in the air?
Well, there's a lot of threats that exist out there. Let's remember, we're talking about technology that was developed in the 1940s. The United States of America mastered not just nuclear technology, but that ballistic missile technology by the 1950s and 60s. Russia, China, they were mastering it by the 60s and 70s. This is old technology, so we need to be aware of that. We're not talking about something that should really be considered that far off. We're talking about something that they've been partnering with Iran on this, so we're talking about a couple different fronts that the U.S. is dealing with when we're dealing with North Korea. We're dealing with Iran and North Korea because they've been working together. They have a very robust submarine program, which means they can get off the coast of Japan or they can get off the coast of the United States of America, not necessarily have to fire one with an intercontinental ballistic missile from one side of the earth to the other. They can drop one off the belly of an aircraft or deliver one in a container ship. So there's a lot of different things that we need to look at what plays into their ability to go out there and saber rattle and actually deliver what they're saber rattling and take these talks in that level of seriousness, because there are very real threats here.
Congressman, Mast of the great state of Florida. We appreciate your time, and that military expertise is just wonderful. Thank you very much.